Good morning. I'm Major Brent Bundy, and I will be the Master of Ceremonies for today's event as we honor Sergeant William H. Carney, an African-American Civil War hero and Medal of Honor recipient. During the ceremony, the Massachusetts National Guard will also present portraits to the Carney Academy for permanent display. Please join me in recognizing our distinguished guest, the Mayor of New Bedford, the Honorable Jon Mitchell. The Superintendent of New Bedford Public Schools, Mr. Thomas Anderson. Deputy Superintendent, New Bedford Public Schools, and former Principal of Sergeant William H. Carney Memorial Academy for over 8 years, Ms. Karen Tredup. Current Principal of Sergeant William Carney Memorial Academy, Mr. Daniel McCoy. Assistant Adjutant General, Army National Guard, and Presiding Officer for today's ceremony, Brigadier General Francis McGurn. Assistant Adjutant General, Army National Guard, Brigadier General Paul Miner. Massachusetts National Guard Command Chief Warrant Officer, CW5J Vincent. Massachusetts National Guard State Command Sergeant Major James Campbell. Mr. Ross Grace Jr., former Assistant Principal, Carney Academy, and member of New Bedford School Committee. And finally, we are pleased to be joined by Mr. Carl Cruz, Sergeant William Carney's descendant and keeper of Sergeant Carney's original Medal of Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the posting of the colors and the playing of the national anthem by Carney Academy students, led by Ms. Sarah Mello. Thank you, students and Ms. Mello. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mayor of New Bedford, the Honorable Jon Mitchell.
All right, be seated, everybody, please. So I've got a few things to say this morning. First of all, I really want to thank a number of folks. General McGurn, thank you for around the flag, but thank you for and the Army National Guard in general for this day. I know we tried to do this during Black History Month in February. We weren't able to set it up for them, but there's never a bad time to celebrate Sergeant Carney and his legacy. And so we really appreciate you and your staffs and the Adjutant General's efforts to recognize him and his role in New Bedford and his role in the larger American story. I just want to say just a couple of other thanks. I want to thank Mr. McCoy, the principal here, the superintendent, of course, as well. I will say, just you'll hear from the superintendent in a second, and he doesn't know I'm about to say this, but so that he doesn't have to brag, General, he had an uncle who was a recipient of the Medal of Honor for action in Vietnam, and that's a really big deal. I didn't want him to be on the spot having to say that. But I think this ceremony would be incomplete if I didn't make note of that as well. And I want to thank everyone. I thank Carl Cruz, who's kept the flame in a general sense, in a metaphorical sense, but who has also kept the medal and has really been the steward of Sergeant Carney's legacy in the city. I just want to say a couple of things. The story, we are well familiar with the story of Sergeant Carney, and you will hear it again today. I will not cover it again except to say, maybe just make a couple of observations that on this occasion, we're here today, after all, to sort of revisit the story, because it is a story that is timeless. It's one that we in New Bedford are enormously proud of, and Americans of every background, but especially African Americans, are proud of. There are a few things to be told. So the story of the 54th Infantry Regiment is one of extraordinary courage, one of sacrifice, one of the highest ideals. And it's a story that is told lovingly in the grand relief across the street from the State House in Boston, and in movies like Glory and other depictions of documentaries and so many other stories that have come down over the last 160 years or so. I would be shirking my duty as Mayor of New Bedford not to point out, General, that sometimes it's altogether too much of a Boston story. The 54th was very much mustered here at the recruiting station on William Street, several blocks from this spot. And it bears to be told that not only Sergeant Carney, but the sons of Frederick Douglass and many other soldiers who ultimately served at places like Fort Wagner and others in the South, African Americans all signed up there. And so New Bedford is a huge part of that story, and you wouldn't get that from a number of the ways it's been told over the years. But as the mayor, that has to be, I find it my duty to remind everybody of that. The second thing I just want to say is that Sergeant Carney himself reflected really New Bedford's best ideals. And I don't know, Carl, if Lee Blake is here today, but others with the New Bedford Historical Association in New Bedford have told the story of African Americans in New Bedford. And one of the things that has become clearer and clearer over the years is that New Bedford was arguably the primary destination for escaped slaves from the American South. A lot of it's not depicted in the tellings of the Underground Railroad, because so many of the African Americans who escaped here, who sought refuge in New Bedford, like Frederick Douglass, did it by boat. And we had an open harbor, the busiest whaling port on the planet, and so a lot of the actual accounting has not been done. But the evidence is starting to mount that New Bedford really was, as one historian recently called it, freedom's Gibraltar. This is the rock. This is the place where freedom shined most brightly in the North. And it's because, for lots of reasons, the Quaker traditions of the town at the time, the sensibilities of folks. This was a place that really stood out, not just by its great wealth, but also by its willingness to take in others, to be a place of safety. I think that's a big part of the story as well. In particular, and Sergeant Carney was a big part of it. He grew up in Norfolk and was able to get here by dint of the help of a number of other people. That's a big part of the story. The other thing I'd just say is this, and I think this is probably the most important point, and it's one that I know school children who've attended Carney Academy since it was established back in the 70s, nearly 50 years ago now, have been able to draw inspiration from. This is somebody who, under the most difficult of circumstances, did his duty. And now, and it's a legacy that's very profound, and it's relevant in different ways as time goes on. In today's world, where there's a feeling of disconnect, a feeling of divisiveness, of a decline in trust in institutions, and many institutions that are the bedrock of our country, his example is something that we should all look to reflect on. Here's a person who, in today's parlance, did what he said he would do under circumstances that few of us ever will have to face, right? Withering fire from an engaged enemy, with people dropping left and right, friends dying, people he's close to dying, and then he still did what he said he would do, and that is, among other things, never letting the flag drop to the ground. And it's the symbolism in that speaks to so many of us today. It is doing what we've committed to do, doing our duty, doing what we said we would do, even when it's hard. And I think for the school children here, my hope is that you and the school children who follow will take up that example. And if you do, we'll be a stronger city, we'll be a stronger country for it, and you'll be a stronger person when you grow up. So I want to thank everybody for attending today and for putting all of this together. Many people also to thank, but this is, for me, it's an inspiring event, and I hope it is for you too. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell. Superintendent of New Bedford Public Schools, Mr. Thomas Anderson.
Good morning, and I appreciate Mayor Mitchell mentioning my uncle who earned his Medal of Honor in 1969 for his work, his service in Vietnam, so I definitely appreciate that. But we're here this morning. I appreciate everyone that has taken the time to come, and with Colonel Sanders Udu, from the time she reached out several months ago to what we have here today, we're definitely appreciative and thankful for the effort that you followed through with all the others that helped to make this happen today. So thank you very much for doing that. This is truly a special opportunity to be here with you this morning as we pay tribute to Sergeant William Carney. We think about, on behalf of all the work that we do every day in New Bedford Public Schools, we definitely want to extend our appreciation for that continued work, that continued service, the legacy that we continue to see through him and his work and from his descendants that will be here today. So when we think about the struggles and perseverance, we need to remember, and Mayor Mitchell alluded to this a little bit, that he was born into slavery. And you think from going from being a slave to earning the Medal of Honor years later and what he stood for, that's something that we should all aspire to be, and being able to put our own individual things aside to work for the common good of everyone else. And so when we really have a time for reflection and really dig in deep to his commitment and dedication, because he laid that foundation for not just someone like my uncle who came around many years later, but for everyone that's here right now as we continue to do this work together. One last piece is, we need to be forever grateful for the fortitude and actions, because we all stand on his shoulders. We hear that a lot about people, but we need to really take that to heart and really take a moment and reflect and think, what has come before us to have allowed us to be in the positions that we're in today, and for our younger people, for the positions that you will be in tomorrow. So again, this is an excellent opportunity to always pay tribute to our true heroes. I thank you for being here this morning, and we look forward to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Assistant Adjutant General, Brigadier General Francis McGurn.
Forward to glory. That's what it says on this coin. Was the motto of the 54th, forward to glory. There's no doubt that those words rang in Sergeant Carney's ears as he and his fellow warriors perhaps bellowed it as they began a absolutely murderous advance on Battery Wagner. Not sure how much you know, I'm not going to do a history lesson, but they're crossing sand and they're going to go up a parapet, the parapet upon which Sergeant Carney eventually placed the colors. So soldiers, airmen, Marines, merchant Marines, Coast Guard, most, probably not all, but most, sign up, raise their right hand, and are willing to go into battle for these concepts that we hold dear. Freedom, liberty, democracy, the American way of life, which probably means something very different to each and every one of them, but they're concepts. Freedom, the right to live your life as you choose. Liberty, the ability to participate in government, decide who your leaders will be, what your laws will be. And the American way of life, as I said, it probably meant something different or means something different to every single person in this room. Some good, some not so good. But to Sergeant Carney, when he said freedom, he means freedom from bonds of chain, literal chain. When he says liberty, he means just the ability to raise a family free of harassment or, God forbid, separation. And when he talks, if he did, about the American way of life, he's talking about a changing way of life, a way of life that he in his own individual role is making happen. So when we talk about Medal of Honor recipients and we talk about the sacrifices that soldiers and airmen and Marines and Coast Guard and Merchant Marines have made throughout our history, we pause and we think, you know, those are significant events. Those are remarkable people. And during the period of Memorial Day, which is rapidly approaching, you will hear rhetoric from people who will talk about, oh, well, they died for their country. Oh, well, they died for freedom or democracy. 9 times out of 10, a service member, particularly the Marines and soldiers who fight on the ground, they die for the person standing next to them. They die for the people in their unit. I don't think anybody went to their grave thinking about the advancement they made for foreign policy. But we know that Sergeant Carney was different. We know that those achievements, those laudable achievements, and by which I mean to take nothing else away from Medal of Honor recipients of recent time, those achievements were achieved in the face of systematic oppression. They were made in the face of persistent oppression, and they were made in the face of often violent oppression. Those are the things that Sergeant Carney was trying to rid this nation of. And so we owe him a little special debt of gratitude for, although he will go down in the annals of soldiers throughout history as being a remarkable one, he will go down in our nation's history as someone who fought for a new way of life and a new image of America. So we owe him our gratitude, and I owe you my gratitude for letting me be part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, General McGurn. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your attention to Corporal Emmett Bell Sykes, who will perform a reenactment of Sergeant William Carney. Please participate in a call and response.
My name is Sergeant William H. Carney, but I realize I'm not the only one. All of you are Sergeant William H. Carney. So in the Civil War, we didn't say hooray. We said hip hip huzzah. So when I say hip hip, can all of you say huzzah? Hip hip huzzah! Hip hip huzzah! Hip hip huzzah! I'd like for you to help me this morning. Rather than go through all the details of the history of the 54th and my story, I want to share it with you through a song or a cadence. So if you can help me, grab the white piece of paper that was on your chair, and I believe Miss Christine might get some help with the screen as well. You're going to help me with the intro and the chorus, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this is. Where you see echo, audience echo, just repeat what I say. Sometimes it might be a little bit different. When we get down to the chorus, you'll see L and A. L is me, the leader, and A is you, the audience, and that'll change later on. But can we do that? Yes. All right, so let's start with the intro. I strove to serve God and kin, and humbly led the way. My ministry was freedom. From Texas to VA. You all are going to start. Go back, right here. I've only done my duty, boys. The old flag never touched the ground. I've only done my duty, boys. I've only done my duty, boys. The old flag never touched the ground. We're going to do a verse and a chorus, and then a short chorus, and then another verse, and then we'll take a break and we'll talk a little bit about that. But y'all are doing great so far. Can you help me keep going? Yes. All right, thank you. Left slavery in Virginia for New Bedford by the sea. Joined the Tucson Guards, which became our company seat. And let's do the chorus. Y'all got it? I've only done my duty, boys. The old flag never touched the ground. Let's go to verse 3. Way down in Charleston Harbor in 1863. The 54th was mounting at the Wagner Battery. Young Colonel Shaw would lead us in faith and bravery. Like many, he was martyred so the captives could be free. All right, so now I want you all to be Sergeant Carney. I'll do the lead-in, and you all, we're going to cheer you, maybe some of the adults and the military folks and the staff. We will cheer you guys on. I want all the students to read the Sergeant Carney parts. Can we do that? And then after that, does anybody know the song Lift Every Voice and Sing? You all heard that before? So Lift Every Voice and Sing was written by a team of songwriters, two brothers and a friend of theirs, James Weldon Johnson, his brother Bob Johnson, Rosemont Johnson, and their friend Bob Cole. They wrote the Black National Anthem. Sergeant Carney was so famous that they wrote a song about him too. So after we do this bridge, I'm going to sing the chorus to the song written by James Weldon Johnson. Is that all right? Yeah. All right, let's do this bridge. All the adults, help me out. Huzzah, Sergeant Carney! Huzzah, Sergeant Carney! No. We're going to do that together, and the students are going to say, I only did my duty. Got it? All right, adults with me. Huzzah, Sergeant Carney! There we go. Huzzah, Sergeant Carney! times would not go down. Beautiful. The old flag never touched the ground, boys. The old flag never touched the ground. Though shot and shell fell all around, boys, the dear old rag was never downed. The old flag never touched the ground, boys, far to the front was ever found. It's been in many a fix since 1776, but the old flag has never touched the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Corporal Bell Sykes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Carl Cruz, descendant of Sergeant Carney, will give remarks.
Good morning, Carney Academy. Good morning. Oh, you haven't changed. Every time I come here, when I say good morning, I get a response without even asking for the response. So you see, some things never change. I know Dr. Waters is looking down with pride, knowing that what he left behind still stands. I am honored to participate in this program today, sponsored by the Massachusetts National Guard. I want to thank Adjutant General Major Gary W. Keith and Colonel Dana Sanders Udo, a New Bedford native, for this invitation. It is always a pleasure for me to visit this school, the students, and the teachers to observe the high standards of excellence which have been a hallmark of this school. These gifts that are presented today are great examples of Sergeant Carney's heroism. Again, my name is Carl Cruz, and I am the great-great-nephew of Sergeant Carney, which means my great-great-grandmother was his sister. He was born in slavery on leap year February 29th, 1840 in Norfolk, Virginia. In describing his early life, Carney stated, "In my 14th year, when I had no work to do, I attended a private and secret school kept in Norfolk. In my 15th year, I embraced the gospel. At that time, I was also engaged in the coastal trade with my father. In 1850, I left for the sea for a time, and my father set out to look for a place to live in freedom. He escaped slavery like his father, who arrived in New Bedford around 1857. Later, they would purchase the freedom of his mother and siblings. In 1863, Sergeant Carney enlisted in the famed 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiment in New Bedford. The recruitment center was located on William Street behind the Custom House, across from Freestone's restaurant, where there is a mural, and the 54th Memorial Plaza, which I hope you will visit when asked why he enlisted, he stated, "I could best serve my country by serving my God and oppressed brothers. The sequel is short, I enlisted for the war." I would like to now share Sergeant Carney's remembrance in his own words from a letter entitled "The Charge on Fort Wagner," which occurred on July 18, 1863. The regiment had gotten but a short distance when we were opened upon with musketry, shell, grape, and canister, which mowed down our men right and left. As the color bearer became disabled, I threw away my gun and seized the colors, making my way to the head of the column. But before I reached there, the line had descended the embankment and into the ditch was making its way upon Wagner itself. In less than 20 minutes, I found myself alone, struggling upon the ramparts, while all around me were the dead and wounded, lying one upon another. And here I said, I can't go into that fort alone. So I halted and knelt down, holding the flag in my hand. While there, the musket balls and grape shots were flying all around me, and as they struck, the sand would fly in my face. I knew my position was a critical one, and I began to see if I would be alone. Discovering that the force had renewed their attack, I turned and discovered a battalion of men coming towards me. They proceeded until they were in front of me, and I raised my flag and started to join them, when from the light of a cannon discharge on the fort, I saw that they were the enemies. I wound the colors around the staff and made my way down the parapet and into the ditch, which was without water when I crossed it before, but now was filled with water that came up to my waist. In rising to see if I could determine my course to the rear, the bullet I now carry in my body came whizzing like a mosquito. I was shot. I continued my course, but had not gone far before I was struck for a second shot. Soon after, I saw a man coming towards me, and when within halting distance, I asked who he was. He replied, "I belong to the 100th New York," and then inquired if I was wounded. Upon my reply in the affirmative, he came to my assistance and he helped me to the rear. "Now then," said he, "let me take the colors and carry them for you." My reply was that I would not give them to any man unless he belonged to the 54th Regiment. So we pressed on, but did not go far before I was wounded in the head. We came a length within halting distance of the rear guard, who caused us to halt upon asking, and finding I was wounded, sent me to the rear and through the guard. An officer came, and after taking my name and regiment, put me in charge of the hospital corps, telling them to find my regiment. When we finally reached the ladder, the men cheered me and the flag. Tired by their cheering enthusiasm, I remarked, "Boys, let us go back and take that fort tonight. I am ready to go." But the officers replied, "You are wounded badly. You better lie down." And I replied, "I only did my duty, boys. The old flag never touched the ground." For his bravery, Sergeant Carney was awarded the Quincy A. Gilmore Medal for gallant and meritorious conduct, which he is wearing in a portrait here in the school. In 1900, he was awarded the nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor, for his bravery at Fort Wagner, and became the first African-American recipient's action recognized. After the war, Sergeant Carney worked as a superintendent of streetlights in New Bedford, a few years in California for the Army, and in 1869 became the first African-American letter carrier in the United States and worked in New Bedford for 32 years. In 1901, he was appointed messenger in the Boston State House, where he died in 1908 after an elevator accident. He is buried in Oak Grove Cemetery, New Bedford, in the family plot with his wife and daughter. To the students here today, I leave you to answer these questions when you go back to your class, because I know you listened to every word I said. Next year, 2024, you will celebrate Sergeant Carney's 184th birthday. How old will he be in leap year age? How many times was he shot? What job did he have for 32 years? Thank you for listening. Have a great day. God bless our troops around the world, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General McGurn, assisted by 2 Carney Academy students, will unveil portraits and gift them to Mr. McCoy for permanent display here at the Academy. General McGurn and Mr. McCoy, would you please come forward? The first portrait is a rendition of Sergeant William Carney with the Medal of Honor. The inscription reads, "Presented to Sergeant William H. Carney Memorial Academy by the Massachusetts National Guard." The second is a portrait of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment. The inscription reads, "The old flag never touched the ground." For remarks, the principal of William Carney Academy, Mr. McCoy.
Fifth graders, you got some homework. The 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry Regiment was recruited in the spring of 1863 by Governor John Andrew, who had secured the reluctant permission of the War Department to create a regiment of African American soldiers. Like all Massachusetts Civil War soldiers, the 54th Men were enlisted in the Massachusetts Volunteer Militia. These guardsmen would serve as a test case for many skeptical whites who at the time believed that blacks would not make good soldiers. On Morris Island, at the mouth of the Charlestown Harbor, the 54th proved they were a battle-ready force. Following 3 days of skirmishes and forced marches with little rest and 24 hours with no food, the regimental commander, Colonel Robert Goldshaw, requested the perilous honor of leading the attack on Fort Wagner, a sand and palmetto log bastion. At night, as night fell, 600 men of the 54th advanced with bayonets fixed. Despite withering cannon and rifle fire, the men sustained their charge until they reached the top of the rampart. There, Colonel Shaw was mortally wounded, and Sergeant William Carney, who had earlier taken up the national colors when the colors sergeant had been shot, planted the flag and fought off numerous attempts by the Confederates to capture it. Without support and faced with superior numbers and firepower, the 54th was forced to pull back. Despite 2 severe wounds, Sergeant Carney carried the colors to the rear. When praised for his bravery, he modestly replied, "I only did my duty. The old flag never touched the ground." Carney was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions and became the first African American to receive the medal. The 54th Massachusetts suffered 270 casualties in the failed assault, but the greater message was not lost. Some 180,000 African American soldiers followed in the footsteps of these gallant guardsmen and proved that African American soldiers could indeed fight heroically if given the opportunity. Today has been a wonderful event, and I think we can just take a moment to honor and celebrate our namesake of this school, William H. Carney, and just to all the planning today. Can we just give a hand clap for everything that has taken place so far? So today we honor the life, the legacy, and the namesake of our proud school, Sergeant William H. Carney. This wonderful event that we just went over, that was presented, took place July 18th, 1863, and it was truly a wonderful expression of strong and admirable human character. So we celebrate today again our school's namesake, Sergeant William H. Carney, for his life and specifically this act of great heroism. That day, he gave all he had. He left nothing behind. He was wounded, moved forward. He gave, as we would say today, he gave 100, or 100, we would say, for his country and the people he served with. And as he gave all he had on that day, as a community, as a school community, following his footsteps, our hashtag here, or our saying, our mantra here, it might be a little corny to you, but we say it a lot. It's Carney 100. And it's that everyone matters and everyone succeeds. And so it's just a commitment that everyone here, all that are a part of our school community, deserve to be successful. And so following again his footsteps, giving that all, that theme of all. We appreciate the legacy that he left for us here and in New Bedford, and specifically our school community. And we hope, our desire is that as a school community, we honor him and we represent his character and what he stood for as best as we can. And it's a lot to stand up to because he was a great man, but we do the best we can. So again, we appreciate everyone who joined us today. I want to give a specific shout out to the Carney community. There's so many to call out today who helped plan it all. But we had, how many enjoyed the chorus today? It's a wonderful job. 5th graders and those who did the national anthem by instrument, and just all the planning today. We appreciate the National Guard collaborating with our school community. And again, we are thankful. We know things like this don't just happen. It takes time, it takes planning, but most importantly, it takes care. So we appreciate you all caring enough to help lift up this great figure that our school is that we are grateful enough to be named after. So again, your presence is felt and appreciated. We appreciate you all. We are thankful for these pictures. We got to find a nice, wonderful place to find them. We'll figure it out. And again, hope you enjoy the rest of the ceremony.
Thank you, Principal McCoy. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your attention to the Carney Academy students led by their music teacher, Mr. Jacob O'Brien, singing "We Shall Overcome." Feel free to sing along as the words are listed on the blue page of your program. Before we retrieve the colors, I'd like to give special thanks to Mr. Arthur Mata, Community and Public Relations, New Bedford Public Schools, Ms. Christina Noel Mata, Assistant Principal here at Carney Academy, the Army and Air National Guard Recruiting, the 101st Field Artillery, the Honor Guard, Public Affairs, the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment, commanded and led by Captain David Henke, First Sergeant Stephen Peschel, Carney Academy students, and all of those who had a hand in assembling today's event. Please give a round of applause. I ask that you please stand for the retrieval of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. Thank you for your attendance and participation.